Supporters of jailed Russian opposition politician Alexei Navalny are set to go on trial today in Moscow. They're being accused of extremism. The court case is the toughest attempt yet to dismantle Navalny's nationwide network of support. Prosecutors accuse his anti-corruption foundation of trying to destabilize Russia. If found guilty, members could face prison sentences and be prevented from running in September's parliamentary elections. Let's get more on this story with our Moscow correspondent, Emily Sherwin. Hi, Emily. What is at stake here for Alexei Navalny supporters and for his organization?
Well, if these three organizations are labeled extremist, that essentially means that their work is completely impossible in Russia going forward. In fact, Navalny's network of offices across the country, 37 of them, have already had to close down. They've stopped their work in anticipation of the verdict in this trial. And people involved with the three organizations being tried today, even in the past, could face jail time. And the thing that I think is dangerous about this label also is that we don't really know how it will be used in the case of Alexei Navalny's organizations. It could even mean that people who posted about, say, an anti-corruption investigation that Navalny did in the past on their Facebook page could face fines or even up to 15 days in jail. And essentially that means that all of Navalny's supporters could face having kind of a black mark on their record. And also Alexei Navalny's allies have said that it essentially is the final attempt to dismantle their structures across the country.
And Emily, this really is being seen as part of this expanding crackdown on Russian opposition. I want to ask you about that in a moment, but first let's take a look at how Alexei Navalny and his organization have inspired a new wave of activists.
February in Moscow. We're filming at the memorial to the murdered opposition leader Boris Nemtsov, just before the 6th anniversary of his death. A young man who looks like a tourist tells us he's just turned his own life upside down.
I was in the police. I resigned when Alexei Navalny was sentenced to prison.
It takes courage to resign for political reasons, and especially to speak out in public. But Sergei is determined.
You can't be scared the whole time. Boris Nemtsov was not afraid, and neither is Alexei Navalny. It depends on all of us. Every one of us has a stake in the future of our country.
28-year-old Sergei was a police officer for 5 years. Now he lives on his savings, blogging on YouTube and Instagram. He posted his resignation online on the day Navalny was convicted. Sergei was still wearing the police uniform. The verdict against Navalny was the last straw. He was also dismayed by the brutal police crackdown on demonstrations.
That's in St. Petersburg. A police officer kicked a woman to the ground. There were no charges against him, and he wasn't even fired. I don't want to be part of this system anymore. I'm ashamed of the violence, even though I wasn't there.
In March, Sergei traveled to Moscow, attending a seminar for local politicians organized by civil rights activists. Among the speakers, prominent opposition figures. Within minutes, police storm the room. They arrest everyone present, including one speaker we were in the middle of interviewing.
Of course, it's dangerous opposing the government, but this is about Russia's future.
Sergei himself was arrested for the first time in his life. He was released and later fined. His former colleagues, he says, would not understand his actions. Like most in Russia, they are not interested in politics. Just 3 cases have been reported of police officers resigning over the latest violent unrest.
Emily, we saw it there. The Kremlin appears to be steadily cracking down on the Russian opposition. Is this all about elections that are taking place in September?
Absolutely. I think it seems pretty clear now that the Kremlin doesn't want any opposition candidates to even be allowed to register. At least that seems to be the signal that we've been getting in the past few weeks. For example, there's this new law which means that anyone deemed to be extremist or connected with an extremist organization will be barred from running in the upcoming elections. That law, according to experts, seems to be squarely aimed at Navalny's organizations, Navalny's allies, even in anticipation of that court verdict that we were talking about earlier. And it's not just people associated with Navalny. For example, in the past few days and weeks, two prominent opposition figures were arrested here in Russia. Andrei Pivovarov, who was the coordinator of Open Russia, a civil society organization, was actually taken out of a plane as he was trying to fly to Warsaw. He was arrested, and Dmitry Gudkov, a well-known opposition politician, was also detained, then released, and he has now left the country. He's gone to Ukraine, and we've also been seeing a crackdown in other areas, not just on politicians, but also on critical media outlets, NGOs, and even on people who took part in protests back in the winter.
And Emily, what about Alexei Navalny himself? Can you bring us up to date on his situation?
Well, we know that this week he was transferred from a hospital within a prison back to just a normal prison. He was in hospital because he had been on hunger strike. Doctors called on him to stop his hunger strike because they said he was close to dying. He was actually protesting the fact that he was not allowed to see independent doctors, even though he was suffering from symptoms he said that were connected with the fact that he was poisoned with using a military nerve agent last year. Now it seems that his health condition is stable and his spirits are up. He's been joking in letters to his lawyers and to his wife that are then posted on Instagram. But he's still in prison, and it seems that he'll be there for the upcoming future.
Emily Sherwin, they're reporting from Moscow. Thank you.